This is Bill. Bill manages a regional title and escrow business with 35% annual growth. To keep pace with his expansion, Bill needs to find highly skilled title and escrow specialists, and in a hurry. This is a big challenge, given the high labor cost and recruiting lead times in his local market. Bill would like to go home and spend more time with his family, but what can he do? Connext has the solution. Connext Global Solutions offers an available pool of highly experienced title and escrow processors located offshore at a surprisingly low cost. Connext gives Bill the capacity to rapidly scale his business, much like national title and escrow firms. The quality of work is exceptional, and unlike most outsourcing companies, Connext has an outstanding monthly employee retention rate of 98.3%, 43% better than industry standard. With his Connext team, Bill is now reaching his goal, and he even saved 50% in labor costs. More importantly, he now has more time for the things that matter most. Looking to expand your business or just keep it afloat? Head over to our website to find out how Connext can help you. Connext.
Good day. Welcome to the webinar on Business Pivot, Understanding How Outsourcing Can Be a Strategy to Grow Your Business. This event is being organized by the various Philippine Trade and Investment Centers, consulates, and embassy of the Philippines in the United States. My name is Andrea Cristina Caimo, Vice Consul and Economic Officer of the Philippine Consulate General in Honolulu. This webinar is the first installment of the Global Business Processes Powered by the Philippines webinar series. From August 13 to October 1, top IT BPO executives will discuss about different types of outsourced services such as virtual assistants, e-learning, creative content and engineering design, call center, healthcare IT, clinical research, software and apps development, as well as accounting and other financial functions. Today, we will introduce the topic of outsourcing and offshoring. We will be joined by three presenters: Jeff Williams, who is the co-founder of Genfinity and board member of the Healthcare Information Management Association of the Philippines, or HIMAP; Tim Mobley, the president of Connext Global Solutions; and J.R. Calanoc, CEO of Panalo Solutions. After the presentations, our speakers will be discussing about these topics, which we hope will help our audience understand better what is outsourcing and offshoring and how it can benefit your business amidst the disruption in the business environment due to COVID-19. After the presentation, we will have a short Q&A. This will be followed by breakout sessions with our three speakers. So please indicate your preferred breakout room in the chat box by renaming yourself. Put your name and then put in your preferred breakout room, whether it's Genfinity, Connext, or Panalo. Let us now proceed to our presentation. Our first speaker is Jeff Williams. Jeff is the co-founder and one of the executive leaders of Genfinity. He is a sitting board member and past chairman of HIMAP, as well as an active participant in various BPM industry-focused association and government-led committees. Let us welcome Jeff Williams.
Thank you, Andrea, for that nice introduction. I'm an American living in the Philippines since 2003. Again, my name is Jeff Williams. I arrived on Philippine shores as a co-founder of a clinical support services outsourcing firm that started with 3 local clinical resources. By 2012, this niche operation had grown to over 1,000 associates. The entity was acquired and today functions as the global clinical services division of a multi-billion-dollar global professional services company. I thought it important to provide that background to let you know that I understand and can relate to the myriad of questions that come up when considering offshore operations. The topic of today's session in the series is how outsourcing can be a strategy to grow your business. And I thought we should start with a brief example of how outsourcing is applied to a process, how information gathered in the planning stages will provide a basis for simple change that impacted the value of the project considerably. So wait for my presentation to come up here. There we go. Okay, so first question is why outsource? So here's an example of a typical company structure with basic functions: sales, marketing, customer support, etc. And keeping them all connected is a myriad of internal systems, usually like a CRM maybe for the sales group, financial software for the finance team, and probably some in-house designed software that's their platform that runs their application. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we go. So now every department has its challenges, and most often these challenges revolve around the need for additional resources, often with skills associated with that respective department. Sales may need lead generation support. Customer service may have attrition issues, which affect service levels, not to mention the cost to rehire, to replace. So again, cost impacting. IT and customer service may grapple with 24/7 support and technical skills that may be in short supply locally. And then, of course, the design production team, the team that's actually making your product or your service, has always got need and for help in different areas of the aspect of their business. So in this example, we're going to focus on a portion of a claim adjudication process of a healthcare insurance company, as well as the data entry function of that process. Now, before we jump off this slide, I would like to point out that every bubble you see here on this, these questions are brought up. Every one of them today are being addressed in one way, shape, or form by outsourcing. And this deck will be available to everybody after the event, so you can review it more at your leisure then. So next slide, please. So the first step in determining how outsourcing can be applied is to conduct an in-depth evaluation of the process. Now, my overly simplified rendition of this claim adjudication process is claims come in from a provider, these are doctors or hospitals, and therefore review or approval for payment from the insurance carrier. The document intake group receives this data and processes it into the company's ERM claim systems. Now, it was identified during the evaluation process that this group does not use clinical resources for this data entry. That's important. That'll come up a little bit later and we'll see. Then it's taken into the system and reviewed by US RNs, which is a much more highly skilled and expensive labored resource. They review it, and if they have any issues or problems with it, that's important to note out due to the federal regulations and structure of the process. They cannot just fix it and move on. They have to fix it and then resubmit it and go over again. So this greatly impacts the speed and the process for how it is handled. And then once it comes back and it's done, they then prove it on. They either validate it for approval or they move it on because they say it's unable to approve. It then moves beyond the scope of this example. So now you see we've gone to the next slide here, or the next section of it. What we did firstly is we replaced that front end data entry portion with Philippine nurses or health educated individuals. That gave us an off the top 40% savings on labor just from the labor arbitrage model actualization. But another benefit that it gave us, because these were clinical resources and they understood how the process, understood terminologies, and they made less errors, we saw a 15% productivity gain on the back end from the US RNs. The animation doesn't, can you click next? Click one more time, please. There should have been another animation. There we go. So we saw a 15% gain from this team because of again, they were getting less errors, so they're spending more time on actually doing the adjudication rather than correcting errors and resubmitting them. We then took it to the next step, and we took the team that was the US RNs in the US, and we split it, and we did 50% in the Philippines, 50% in the US. This automatically gave them a built-in BCP for business continuity aspects by having one team on opposite ends of the globe, so that way they're in any event that impacted one area, the other area could keep running. So this is just an example of how powerful tool outsourcing can be, not only in reducing costs, and honestly, remember, we came into this first off looking, oh, we're going to reduce cost on the front end with the labor arbitrage play from the intake portion, but you saw how it impacted services on the back end, and then how also it brought another layer of security and sensibility to the program. So next slide, please. So outsourcing options. Now let's just talk about next slide again. What's the best model for you? So I've taken outsourcing now and I've broken it down into 4 buckets or 4 definitions. Your first one being managed services outsourcing. Now, everyone's probably outsourced in one way, shape, or another, and managed services is an offering, and it just makes more sense. They can do it at a larger scale. You don't want to make the investment. A great example of that would be a printing shop. Say you need to print out flyers for your company. You don't want to go and buy all the ink and load your printers and spend all the time. You would just send it out to a print shop. Same thing for job recruiters when you're hiring. Again, it's their skill set. They may be better at it, have a better network, and maybe even payroll processing. The next section we have is business process outsourcing, or BPO, which is the main discussion topic, I think, for today, what we talk about. And this is the one that people know the most, where you've enlisting a third-party provider to bring their skills and understandings of the industry, as well as their operational acumen, I should say, in doing third-party outsourcing, to give them a piece of a process that they may insert in. That example we did earlier, just a moment ago, was a great example of what was something that was done in a BPO process. While the claim adjudication process itself is much bigger, the part you saw there was just a piece of it that was outsourced and then was given to one other company to kind of bring the examples to how to bring the efficiencies to it. Another model you'll see would be the global in-house center or shared service centers or captives. There's many names for it, but essentially what this is someone who's kind of either started in the BPO and determined that they've gotten to a size to say, you know what, we're going to just do this ourselves. They've got a familiarity with it. But now, to be honest with you, in today's technological environment, the barriers are a lot lower, and you can start your own GIC or shared service center with very, very minimal input or investment, I should say, because now all these various aspects are kind of available as a service, which kind of perfectly leads us into our next model, which is the hybrid model. And you'll find there's lots of vendors out there that are either providing or supporting different pieces of this. You can lease the seats that you need on a per seat basis. You can even lease the people that go in those seats. So you would basically have a Philippine company be your employer of record. And then you could get people that would be 100% dedicated to you. And then as you moved on, this is a perfect opportunity for you to maybe pilot out an aspect to say, I'm thinking about setting up my own operation in the Philippines. But I want to kind of test the waters, so you can work with one of these hybrid type models and say, let me start out with a team of 10 or people with you or something. Let's try it out. If we work it, then we'll go down the progression route of growing it up. So whichever model of these four models kind of work for you, it may be one of these, it may be a combination of these, it may be something even completely different. I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's very, very fluid. You've got a lot of technical people that can help you out with this. But I do think you should keep in mind what we'd like to say the ABCs of outsourcing. And the first one, create an action plan. So thoroughly evaluate your processes, determine which is best for you to outsource, understand the technological and capability requirements, and design a comprehensive transition methodology. Also, build a timeline, include talent identification, acquisition, technical equipment, lead times, and incorporate a realistic training, go live nesting to full production capacity planning model. Because again, you're going to want to see returns on your investment, but you have to be practical. How long does it take before you really got them ready? And if you rush it, you're going to have issues, and that's not going to work for anybody. And then lastly, you want to factor in the data from A and B, and then pull that together to perform a comprehensive costing analysis. This will avoid surprises and allow you to determine the actualization of your return on your investment. Next slide, please. So speaking of the various options and that hybrid option, I would take a few minutes to talk about my company, which is Genfinity. And I think whatever model you do pick, a key component in the level of and time to realize success in your outsourcing venture is selecting the right partner with the experience and resources to support you through every step of the process. Genfinity is a consulting and training services company that incorporates a as-a-service approach to supporting and establishing operations in the Philippines. Our industry experienced consultants utilize time-proven methodologies and processes to assist you in every aspect of your Philippine operation, from opportunity process evaluation, legal services from incorporating to ongoing labor law support, operational support, talent acquisition, human resources. Our legal team will consult with you on the options for incorporation and facilitate the entire process on your behalf. Talent acquisition and training teams will identify the right personnel and administer our custom designed onboarding training covering the basics that will work with your team to customize and administer your unique processes and systems training. As support during the hectic implementation phase, we offer operational oversight as your newly hired local managerial resources. I've got their hands busy in bringing up the operation. We're bringing up all the support aspects on the back end. And then we deliver HR, payroll, finance, accounting, everything as a service for you. So all these things are there for you. And then as we build it out, we always have fully in mind from a build, operate, transfer model. We'll work with you to get it up and running. We'll help you get it operating. And at what point, whenever you're ready, completely transfer it to you, stepping back completely or still staying involved to some degree to assist you as you continue to grow. Next slide, please. So we've gone over an example. I've shown you or discussed a few of the iterations of how BPO or outsourcing is applied. And I shamelessly plugged my company. So now let's get on to the next portion of, okay, I'm on board, I want to do it, where do I do it? We'll say the Philippines, and you're going to say, why the Philippines? So I would like to now go on to the next slide and talk about that. Firstly, Philippines has a 45 million strong Filipino workforce, producing 700,000 graduates annually with a median age of 24 years old. Next slide, please. Also, we have very, very strong government support, as evidenced by this webinar that we're doing right now today. So, and allow me to take a second to give a shout out and a thank you to the Philippine Department of Trade and Industry, the Philippine Embassy and Consulates, as well as the Philippine Trade and Investment Centers for all their efforts in the design, developing, and actualization of this 8-part series. The BOI, DTI, and PEZA have put in considerable time and effort over the years, making the Philippines the attractive business landscape that it is for outsourcing. DepEd and CHED have ensured that we have a continual supply of educated, motivated, and extremely pleasant Filipinos. Also, the DOST and DICT for working to ensure the continued stability and growth of the infrastructure required to support the industry across the country. And let's not forget the Department of Labor ensuring a safe and stable work environment for all involved. Sector highlights, I think this has been heard before, but we can't say it enough. The Philippines is the #1 provider for voice services in the world with 13% of the global market, employing over 1.3 million local employees and generating revenue of over $26 billion. IBPAP is the umbrella organization over all the different sectors. And by the way, a quick shout out and thank you to IBPAP for this wonderful industry information I'm sharing with you now today. But under IBPAP is various subsectors that kind of addressed in their various aspects of outsourcing for the animation, for contact centers, game development, global shared services, IT, and healthcare services outsourcing. Next slide. Since I've been spending the most of my time in healthcare, I think that's where you're going to get some more information from that, a deeper dive from that on me. Every 6 years, the industry reaches out to conduct a roadmap report that we kind of, for going forward, looking forward, also looking back and seeing where have we come and where are we going, what do we do to maintain and get there. Now, looking from the, in 2016, we had engaged the Everest Group. They came in, worked with all of our different associations to gather information. And from on the healthcare side of the house for the Healthcare and Life Sciences Support Group, they looked at the industry and said for 2018, it was a $5 billion industry employing about 190,000 people. And then at the healthcare, you can see when compared to all the other sectors that lined up, has always been a very fast, high growing sector. And especially in today's times, we continue to see that going on for quite a while. Next slide, please. There now, I'm sorry, go back one. One back, please. Okay, never mind. We'll continue on. Okay, there we go. Just what to point out here is where we see in 2018, it was a $5 billion global industry, but yet you see the Philippines represents 2.7 of that. That means over 50% of the healthcare and life sciences support industry is coming from the Philippines and being supported by the Philippines. And as well, when you see the amount of labor dedicated to it. By and far, the Philippines is clearly the leader in support for this, and this is the place to come if you're looking for healthcare support. Next slide, please. How do we do that? Next slide, please. How do we achieve that, or why is the Philippines such a fast-growing area, and why does it command so much of the market? Is quite simply, it's just the unparalleled Filipino healthcare workforce. The report you see here came from the National Council of Nursing in the U.S. Every year, they measure and monitor and report the number of foreign educated, of all actually nurses, but of foreign educated individuals who have taken the NCLEX exam, which is the exam you need to do to become a USRN. I've listed the top 3 countries as far as the number of tests taken and the number of past results. It's very, very obvious the Philippines is far and away the leader in that regard, with over 4,700 nurses that have passed the NCLEX exam. Actually, if you look at it across the whole entire worldwide aspect, 63% of US RNs that are foreign educated come from the Philippines. And then at a local level in the Philippines itself, we have over 42,000 graduates in the allied health disciplines. We've had 9,000 nurses pass the Philippine nursing exam, with another almost 5,000 people passing the pharmacist exam. There really is, it's just an unparalleled to the rest of the world clinical workforce for you to address. Next slide. And then again, I'm running short on time here, but if you want to join me in my breakout session, I gave you one example of claim adjudication, but that's just a very, very small piece. It's just kind of an idea of the different types of services that are being done from healthcare companies here in the Philippines. And again, this doesn't even encompass it all. But if you look at it, you can see it in the different verticals, from the insurance players to providers, being doctors and clinics, technology from an IT perspective, or from the pharmaceutical group. And then one more slide. Next slide, please. This again is, well, I'm back one more. Yeah, this here is my last slide. Obviously, I think you can read ahead and see. Same thing that goes for healthcare also goes to the entire industry overall. While we are #1 in voice, the Philippines represents #1 position there. There are a myriad of other disciplines and aspects and opportunities afforded from the Philippines. So I do encourage you to, if you're looking to outsource and you're ready to go forward with it now, come to the Philippines. We've got the support, we've got the people, and we've certainly got an excellent workforce ready to step in and help you. So that's my presentation. So hopefully, Andrea, that's was informational, informative for you. Please, thank you for your time, and I'll give the ball back to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That is indeed a great presentation and a great overview of what our IT BPM industry can offer, specifically on the field of healthcare. And it's also good that you've discussed a little bit about the different arrangements in terms of outsourcing. We have actually not only outsourcing per se, but we do have managed services, global in-house, hybrid. These are all the types of arrangement that you could actually consider if you would opt to outsource some of your services to a third party in the Philippines. So thank you for that introduction. We'll now go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Tim Mobley. Tim is the president of Connext Global Solutions, a business process outsourcing firm supporting a diverse client base. He is a board member for the Emergency Group and has over 20 years of progressive experience in executive management, including serving as the president of a dental group and head of an integrated clinic and hospital. Let us welcome Tim Mobley.
Thank you, Andrea, for that kind introduction. Get my screen up. Good day, everyone. I'm truly happy to be here, and thank you for joining. I'm excited to share some of the things that I've learned, and hopefully some of it will be useful, or at the very least interesting. I'll start by echoing much of what Jeff said. The things he discussed are consistent with my experience, both as a purchaser and provider of services. And so I'll try not to be repetitive, but some of it I'm sure will rhyme. And with that, I'll jump right in. Well, there we go. So I am going to talk about 5 things today, a little bit about my sort of personal history and how I got involved in this and the transition from purchaser to provider, and then about operations and outsourcing, touch on cost structure again, and then talk a little bit about what's happening with the coronavirus COVID situation. So 2008, I think, I was the president of a healthcare organization. It was a dental group. We had about 200 employees, 10 offices, 40 dentists, and I was in a geography that was sort of a tough employment geography, and it was, more than anything, it was constraining our growth. So we needed to find capability to grow our workforce. And you know, at that time, in my mind, outsourcing was in India. And so I found something and made it work. And we had great results. But after a couple of years, we started, I guess there were some cracks, and the light went off in my head, and I'm like, okay, why? I should have done this in the Philippines. It's first of all, it's half as far away, same cost. And the big difference really, at least from my perspective, was there was a much better path to voice services. We started with back office work, medical billing, eligibility verification, things like that. And I knew, I was very concerned about our relationship with our patients, and I knew there just wasn't going to be a path to voice services. And that's probably what drove us to switch. And I've been very happy and haven't looked back. So I won't talk about this too much, but as a mid-sized business, a lot of the very large firms just don't offer what we need. They don't work at that scale. And so we sort of stumbled into this remote staffing, staff augmentation model, kind of the hybrid model in Jeff's chart. And I think one of the most interesting things is I jumped in because of the ability to find staff and lower costs, but the biggest portion of our value actually came from process improvement. There's something about, establishing a remote workforce and documenting the processes that really made a difference there. It worked out so well in 2014. I really jumped in and started a company. We started with just a handful of employees, and we've been growing steadily for the last 6 years. And I think one of the important things is, important to me rather, is I really try to focus on what I wanted as a purchaser of services. I dealt with BPO providers both in India and the Philippines before I became a provider myself, and there were a lot of things that I wanted to see different. That doesn't necessarily make them right, but I think when people are thinking about the right kind of partner, it's important to understand, because there are a number of different approaches and value systems. So what can be outsourced? Sort of interesting, this probably wouldn't have made sense 6 months ago, but really anything that can be done from home can be done from the Philippines. So much work has transitioned so quickly in the US businesses that I know, from a on-site to work from home environment, and most of that work can be done in the Philippines. There's 100+ million people, and as we look through resumes and hire people, there's a really tremendous talent pool of people who have worked for very large multinational companies. We have employees with experience at, you name it, Dell, Amazon, IBM, United Healthcare, et cetera. And for a lot of geographies, there's just not access to, at any price, people with that kind of experience. So I want to touch here on a couple of things. So for these type of companies, why are they looking to outsource? Medical billing, both for provider organizations and medical billing companies, the typical healthcare claim will be less than $200 for non-hospitals, for provider, physicians, dentists, et cetera, less than $200, often less than $100. But there's a high volume. And so using a remote team allows a low cost path to meeting that volume. Also interestingly, it allows investment in higher caliber office employees, because if you can, there's always going to be someone who talks to the patient, checks them in, dental assistant, et cetera. And as a business owner, you can shift some of the costs and improve the service with the actual in-person encounters. Customer support, I think is, a lot of this is obvious, but, as we talk to clients and people think about it, they do it for things like extending the coverage hours. We have a client who wanted to have 24/7 coverage. It was cost prohibitive in their local geography. And so we were able to help them with that. We have other clients who wanted to have a very high level of customer service. If you think about going from 90% answer rate to 95 to 99, it's one of those asymptotic things where you have to invest a lot more to get to higher customer service level, and having a second site can help there. So this is a list of industries that we support, and there's others. I've consistently been surprised as I learn about things that are happening from the Philippines for companies around the world. And I think what's interesting is this is like sort of the hybrid quasi-captive staff augmentation model. Like, for example, we have a healthcare client where we do the billing, which everyone could kind of expect. We help with the accounting, which people might expect, some maintenance and graphics. But we also have a reporting analyst who works directly for the CEO and runs all of his reports and does his business intelligence work. We also have a team of nurses that do patient intake and related functions. One more I'll highlight that's interesting, this HR company, there's 6 teams in the Philippines supporting different functions within that HR company. And this is not necessarily you flip a switch and this happens, but it's something we built up with this client over the last 18 months or so. And there's a note on the bottom there. Good managers, I think, can do almost anything, but they can't do everything. And so what I think from a management perspective, in my experience, is figuring out, focusing on what's core to the business and where they can really make a difference. And so kind of logically from there, I mean, I think the question isn't whether to outsource, it's how to do it smartly and how to do it strategically. And I won't spend too much time because I think this is, echoes what Jeff talked about, but it's really important to have a clear goal. Why am I doing that? And once it's clear what I'm trying to accomplish, then a lot of other things will fall into place. What kind of partner do I want? What kind of arrangement do I want? Because they have to be aligned with the goal. So cost structure. This is a multi-layered onion, and so this is a abstracted version of what Jeff talked about, and it's the model I use. Am I paying for a service, or am I paying for people's time? And that, I mean, for me personally, that's where I start. Am I paying for people's service, or am I paying for people's time? And as the provider, am I providing people's time, or am I providing a service? And if you kind of think through that, everything else will flow. We Connext purchase outside accounting services. We pay a fixed amount per month, and we don't have visibility into, we don't have control over who's on the team and what kind of accounting system they use. We just pay to have the work done and get a report, and that's an example of purchasing a service. Staff augmentation is we provide the staff. We also work for accounting companies, and we provide CPAs and accounts payable clerks and developers, but they work under the direction of the client and in their system. I won't spend much more time on that, but it's really important to understand. So I encourage anyone to ask questions and think about and understand what they're buying. So for the managed service, the big benefit is, as a purchaser, you don't have to know anything about it. I don't know every small business almost, or mid-sized big business, goes out and buys accounting services without having a CPA license and having the ability to do that. The drawback is really cost and control. We're paying for not only those professionals, but the infrastructure required for them to work. And for staff augmentation, captive, hybrid, the two big benefits are flexibility and control, and to some extent cost, but flexibility and control because the clients can have the people do whatever they want in whatever system they want, whatever schedule. And so some of our clients say, I want to have 100% QC, which may cost, an extra 25%. And we're okay with that because they just, have the extra staff time. And so the pricing of this is going to be some variant of per person per month, or hours, or something like that. Let me go back to managed service. The pricing is some variant of a fixed charge per service provided. And I made this little matrix to help think about it. Most SMEs have the expertise for the processes they're trying to manage, but they're looking for employees or cost savings. And that's why I'm an advocate or fan of staff augmentation or captive. Okay, outsourcing in the time of COVID. I sat down to start working on this question. It's obviously not something I would have canned, and I started thinking about it, and I realized that from the perspective of our clients, the new normal is the same as the old normal. And what I mean by that is, if we didn't tell them that Susie's working from home this week, they wouldn't even necessarily know because the work's done remotely. And so as long as they're available and their internet works and they have the computers and the ability to log in, et cetera, there's no how would you say this? It's transparent to the client, or they don't, they wouldn't even know about it. And so we transitioned to a hybrid work from home, work from office environment, and it all happened in the background without client impact. That's sort of the good side. The painful side is for all the service providers. Like every business in the world, we had to quickly figure out how to manage new safety protocols, social distancing in the office, temperature checks, testing, et cetera. We didn't have a choice. We figured out that the team did extraordinarily well, and I couldn't be more pleased. And I wanted to show this. It's kind of interesting to me because as a company, we do the same things in 2020 that we did in 2019. We just do them a little bit different. Our trainings via Zoom. The picture in the middle on the right there is our company anniversary party, and we had food delivered, and we had video from a couple of people in the office. And so trying to establish some sense of normalcy. And I think the bottom line here is really this thought process, or this realization about how much work can be done remotely, and whether it's remote somebody's home in the local geography or remote in the Philippines, why does it really matter? And I've definitely seen some difference in thinking among our clients, even among who they interview and the kind of employees they want. So a quick COVID case study. This client is very typical of a client that works with an outsourcing company, and it's a fast-growing venture-backed medical technology company. And I think the thing that they were really looking for was scalability, because if you have 20 people and you add 10 people, that's a 50% increase in office space, furniture, et cetera. And there's this, when you go out and lease space, there's this step function, whereas they could add 2, 3, 4, 5 people in our office without doing that. And so that's sort of a very normal situation. And pre-COVID, we would do in-person screening and interviewing for all of these people, have them come on site, use our video teleconference facilities, and work on site. And so, from the client's perspective, old normal is the new normal. We found the people, the CPAs, we onboarded them. We've been steadily growing 1-2 people every month as they're ramping up and their volume increases. But behind the scenes, we had to change. We had to restructure our hiring processes. We had to develop real-time online assessment tools, switch, this is an adjustment for everyone to switch to a video-based interview process. And it's an adjustment, but we've done very well. And I think everyone's been happy with how it's going. So it's interesting. So with that, I will transition here. I love this quote. If we want things to stay the same, this in terms of market share, profitability, whatever, as business conditions and worldwide conditions are constantly changing, things must change for us in order to keep them the same. And so with that, I'll close, but in the future, I'd love to answer any questions that anyone has. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim, and for expounding what managed services and staff augmentation is all about. I think that's a very good discussion to make people better understand what the types of arrangements outsourcing company does. So, and it's also good that you've highlighted some of the things that is happening right now, the changes that is going on with COVID-19, and the things that you are doing in order for your operations to cope, and also to help the businesses here in the US save, because just imagine if they have to like they're actually you guys, by absorbing the workers, you're taking away the headache of managing manpower from the companies here in the US. So thank you for that wonderful presentation. Let's now go to our next speaker, JR Calanoc. JR is the CEO of Panalo Solutions. Panalo is an international web and mobile development company focused on helping startups and small to medium-sized businesses grow. Let's all welcome JR Calanoc.
Hey, Andrea, thanks for the introduction. Consulate in Hawaii, thanks for the opportunity to be on here. I saw Nick from New York and Celine from San Francisco, so we really appreciate the continued partnership with DTI and the consulate with the private sector. It's been a really good partnership, so we appreciate it. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay, all right. Great presentations with Jeff and Robert about what and why outsource. So what I'll be talking a little bit about is how companies can actually start thinking about outsourcing and best practices when it comes to outsourcing. Company's Panalo.co. We've been in business about 8 years. We really started the company with a focus of really promoting the creative talent that the Philippines has and the technical talent that the Philippines has to the rest of the world. So we started that focusing on actually with the US market, making sure people here know that the Philippines has amazing creative folks and very technically savvy folks as well. The last 8 years, we have about maybe 600 clients or so, ranging from small business, from bike shops to airports to gyms to medium-sized companies, restaurants, newspapers, colleges, and larger clients, startups here in Silicon Valley, manufacturers, tech manufacturers. So lots of really interesting stories with outsourcing across the board for different size companies. What I'll talk about today is a little bit about BPO, business process outsourcing, and how to make it work for you. I think I've got about maybe 8 or 10 minutes, so I'll speed it up a little bit. Okay, so outsourcing, you're contracting a specific work process or processes to a third-party vendor, okay? Some quick examples of big companies that outsourced. P&G, they outsourced their research and development. They outsourced activities which led to 60% increase in innovation and productivity, and which created $5 billion in new product revenue. So they outsourced the research. Slack, I know a lot of companies are using Slack now. They're one of the top work messaging apps. They're very sleek, they're very functional, it's very easy to talk to your whole team. But in the early days, they had to hire a firm called MetaLab to redesign their logo, improve the company app and the website. So they outsourced the actual development of the app. Alibaba, everybody knows about Alibaba, possibly the world's biggest e-commerce site. When they first started, they actually had to outsource their software development to the US because at that time they didn't have the technical capabilities to build what they needed to build and to compete with eBay. WhatsApp, I know a lot of folks use that also. They've been purchased a few years ago by Facebook, 19 billion. They were a 5 part-time employee with 30 full-time employees, and most of the work by the developers were done in Russia to help keep their costs down. So some background on some companies that focused on outsourcing to make their business grow. So some tips. Okay, so outsourcing, finding the right outsourcing company, it can be a lot like dating. We talk about that a lot with the clients. You want to take your time. There's a lot of options out there, a lot of development companies, a lot of software companies, a lot of BPO firms out there. You want to make sure you find the right fit. You're making a decision based off limited information. You may be in Hawaii, you may be in San Francisco, you may be in Europe, right? So you're not really able to visit the office or meet with people face to face. You don't have as much information as you would have when hiring a team based locally. There's also a recent trend and a shift to the quality of the engagement. Instead of working with a bunch of people, you really want to find one or two good folks that you want to work with. Okay, so why we want to outsource? I think Jeff and Robert really hit the nail on the head there with some of the reasons why it's important. Top reasons to outsource: reduce your operation costs, increase the speed to usage for your product or services. It allows you to focus on the core of your business, right? I think I saw, so focus on your business, improve the quality of your services, and foster innovation. So if you're a startup, you want to outsource a lot of the day-to-day activities so you can focus on innovating. Understand what you want to outsource. So you can outsource either easily taught or highly specialized skills. What's an example? Easily taught skill, maybe customer service. People coming in and saying, hi, I understand there's something wrong with your Bluetooth system. Let me help you fix it. Let me schedule an appointment for you. Let me set an appointment for you with our manager. Or something that's really specific and you'd have to hire for that. So maybe a specific iOS developer, PHP developer, or something very specific. What we usually go through with clients is we try to first understand what are the things you want to outsource. Very simple process, lots of different ways of doing it, but something you may want to try is you really just, sit down, and for a lot of the medium-sized companies, small to medium-sized companies, the CEO or the business owner, you do pretty much everything, right? You're the janitor to the CEO, and it's a lot of work. So you write down what I do. You update your website, you reply to all your clients, you do training, do accounting. Then you look at what I need done that I'm not great at. Okay, I'm not great at coding, or I'm not great at bookkeeping. What I want to do more of, well, I want to go out there and get more business. I want to find new clients, and I want to find exciting things. And that's really where you're able to nail down, okay, what are the things that you need to delegate? And those are the things that you might want to outsource. When you do find a company, big tips is the checklist of things to look for. Reputation of the provider, DTI, the consulate, they're there to help with Philippine Software Association. You can look up different history of the providers. Scope of the services provided, you want to make sure the scope is very clear. Are they just building you a website? Are they building you an app, software, iOS and Android, or are they building you a full HR system, right? You want to really scope that and make sure it's very clear. The speed of the service, is this a big company? Is it a small company? Are they able to finish your project in 1, 2, 3 months, or is it a 1-year project? The experience and skill level, you want to look at the history of the developers, how they're hired, look at the experience of what past projects they've worked on. It brings you to their portfolio. I find also very important is the fit with your goals and your culture. If you're a 10-man team, you may not want to hire a 100-man, or a 1,000-man team company, right? So sometimes you find a good mix where the culture is good and the right attention is put to put on the team, right? And it goes the other way. If you're you're a 100-man company, you're a 100-team company, you probably won't want to hire a team that has only maybe 5 or 6 developers on there. And ease of working together. Are they able to communicate properly? Are they actually one of the key benefits or key secrets with outsourcing your work is over communicating. Talk a lot, talk back and forth, and keep everybody updated. The ease of working together and ease of communicating is very, very important when you're going through the checklist. This is my last slide, keeping it quick. The relationship with the development team that you hire is really important. It's never set and forget. You don't hire someone and say, okay, I'll see you in 3 months when my software app is done. The first thing that's really important, and you need to take this into consideration when outsourcing, is you have to invest time up front. Recording, documentation, this is what we want you to do. This is what you're going to do for us. This is how long it's going to take. These are all the requirements. Very clear, super important that that's very clear right off the bat. Shadow the team, look at your team and see how they're doing day to day. And very similar, if you were to hire somebody on your team that's sitting next to you, you'd be a good coach, right? You'd give good feedback. You'd give them good feedback. You'd give them constructive feedback, and you give them good feedback again to make sure that they're motivated. Same way with an international team. You want to be able to give that good feedback, whether you're giving feedback directly to the team or to maybe the manager that's managing the team, right? So there's many ways to do that. Communicate regularly. Does the provider show up on time? Then when you're outsourcing, you say there's a time difference. So it's very important when we say we do our kickoff call at 10 a.m., everybody's on the call at 10 a.m. That's really important. Again, communication, over communicating, you want to make sure people are there. How frequently are your updates, and are they clear in communications and escalated, and do they escalate needs? Very important. The team that you hire tells you everything's great, but when it's not great, they need to tell you that as well. Use technology. Teams will typically use the technology that you're using, or you can use their systems. Let's see, you've got Google Shared Documents, you've got Box, you've got Drive. A lot of different systems out there that you can use for the CRM. You want to check to make sure it's compatible. And then you want to have goals. That's probably one of the major factors also. Before you hire the team, you want to say, okay, these are the KPIs up front. Make sure that both parties agree, and you track your goals regularly to make sure that everybody's tracking for that. So closing, that's, I think, maybe, some of the real, if you can keep these things in mind when you hire a team internationally, hopefully in the Philippines, this will help you find a good team and keep that team working for you. Again, JR Calanoc with Panalo.co, and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, JR. And thank you so much for all our speakers for the wonderful presentations that you've shared to us. It's really great that we got an industry overview from Jeff. We also learned about the different outsourcing arrangements from Tim and also from Jeff. And of course, JR discussed the in-depth how we could go on to the process of choosing our outsourcing partner. So we still have like 4 minutes left for Q&A before we go to our breakout session. So maybe I'd just like to ask, with COVID-19, how has businesses been impacted, and also why is it now the best time for companies to consider outsourcing? Maybe you could start with Jeff.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I had to unmute there. COVID is certainly a challenge. It's a challenge around the world. I'll speak with my mask on, right, if that helps to show that we're keeping safe. But really, truly, people have come together. We've got protocols in place. As you can see, I'm in the office here. So business still is moving forward. It will continue to go. So there's rules and regulations. Governments work very well with government, recognize what we do and the importance of us being to work. We've brought personalized shelling services in, certainly a lot more protocols for hand washing, wearing the mask, as I just discussed. So, I mean, I think that's the best you can do. We have people, sometimes are housed near the office as well to kind of reduce exposure to the outside world and different protocols and processes. So why it's a good opportunity right now is, there's good talent being available just simply because of the nature of the impact on some business. There's a lot of really good people that are looking to find jobs or find employment. And if you're looking now to capitalize on that, now's a great time to reach out to us.
Thanks, Jeff. How about you, Tim?
So I agree, right? I think the only thing I would add is this. I kind of talked about it. We're seeing this, what I would call mindset shift in terms of people, at least at the mid-sized business scale and smaller. There's a lot of sort of that could never be done from home. That could never be done out of the office mentality, and that has changed. And so. And that's when I talk to mid-sized businesses, that's often a challenge to begin with. And so the change in that mindset and the example, I think, has showed a lot of people what's possible and will make implementation a little easier for executives, getting people to buy into the idea that something could be done remotely.
Thanks, Tim. JR?
So the effects of COVID on the ground for our small business and medium-sized companies, you can really see it varies. It's very sad to see the really smaller companies and small restaurants closing shop, nothing they could do. And it's sad to see that, and you do see that. The middle-sized company, medium-sized companies, what we've seen is they've doubled down. They said, okay, we have time to now focus on fixing up our systems. Let's take this time to develop our apps. Let's take this time to really organize our CRMs. So you've seen a lot of folks take the time to focus on more software development. I agree with what Tim mentioned, the culture shift or the mindset shift. A lot of businesses that were traditionally, nope, I don't need to go online. I've been running this company for 20 years, and we've been fine without being online, without marketing online. You're seeing a big shift in that and saying, okay, we now realize that if we're not online, we don't have a business, or we won't have a business. So that's what we're seeing on the ground with the different size companies.
Great. Thank you, folks, for that. And just in time, we'll now go to our breakout rooms. So for those who have not indicated their preferred breakout, you could do so now by renaming yourself. Just put your preferred breakout room after your name. So for those that already chose their breakout room during registration, we'll automatically assign you now. Again, thank you so much for joining us in our first webinar. We will have 7 more, so make sure you pre-register in advance. If you wanted to get in touch directly with Jeff, Tim, and JR, these are their contact information. Just save them and message them so that they could arrange a one-on-one meeting with you. You could also join their breakout session by indicating in your name here in Zoom that you wanted to join their breakout room, or message any of the moderators. Again, thank you very much, and we will see you now in our breakout sessions.
Thanks, Andrea.